good. So hello everyone, and welcome to today's virtual event, AI versus no code, choosing the right tool for your MVP development. I am Ryan Burns. I'm the head of community for the Startup Network, and it's fantastic to have you all here. At the Startup Network, we're all about fostering innovation, collaboration, and growth within the startup ecosystem. And as Australia's largest and most active startup community, we offer a diverse range of events and resources designed to support founders, operators, investors at every stage of your journey. A big thank you to Jhavtech, our wonderful facilitator for today's virtual event, ensuring everything runs smoothly. We have an exciting lineup of events coming up. This week alone, packed with opportunities for learning and networking, and some fun. So here's what's on the agenda for the next week alone. Obviously, today we've got the AI versus no code session at lunch today. It's going to be a really good chance for you to explore the pros and cons of the powerful tools and determine which might be the best fit for your startup. Tonight, we're actually going to be having our in-person event at the Collingwood Commons in Gipp Street. It's going to be sports, gaming, AR, VR pitch night, and it's going to be super cool. To be honest, we just met with all the finalists and some really cool, innovative products that we got to experience, and really just really cool stuff in terms of the products that we're looking at. Tomorrow, we're going to be hosting another event virtually. It's going to be Accelerate Your Tech Startup with the Startup Network and Baseline. And this online event is going to provide valuable insights into scaling your tech startup. And it's going to feature expert advice and real world examples. And you're going to be able to get $15,000 worth of benefits if you show up. So if you just fill out the application that's in I'll put all these links on there so that you can take a look, but really good idea to show up to that. The next day, Thursday, we have another virtual event, and that is Mobile Marketing 101 with our friends at Appimate. You're going to learn the essentials of basically marketing, how you would for your mobile app and how to effectively reach your audience in today's mobile-centric world. And then next Monday, to round out that 7-day period, we'll be back with prototyping for founders, how to save time and money. And this is going to be provided by our friends at Bigger, and it's going to be perfect for anyone looking to streamline their product development process and bring their ideas to life more efficiently. But yeah, throughout today's seminar, I'll be moderating the session in the background. We'll be facilitated by our friends at Jhavtech. So please feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We'll address them all during the Q&A segment at the end. But let's dive into today's topic and explore whether AI or no code is the right choice for your MVP development. If you have any questions for myself, again, my name is Ryan. Just put into the chat and we'll get going. Rick, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, well, thanks, Ryan. Let me just get all set up here. Awesome. Can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, looks good.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. So I begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Thanks for attending this webinar today, and many thanks to the Startup Network for partnering with us on this webinar. Thanks, Ryan. And thank you for finding time in your day and your schedule and everything that Startup Network does and all that stuff that Ryan just showed. I'm amazed that you were able to find the time to join us. So really thank you for today. So my name is Rick, and I'm the growth strategist at Jhavtech Studios. We're a mobile and web app design and development agency. So as Ryan mentioned, I'll be talking about using no-code and generative AI tools to build your product. So just a little bit about me and Jhavtech Studios. So at Jhavtech, we focus on rescue projects where startup founders, in particular non-technical startup founders, need help with dev. And over the past 20 plus years, I've had a wide and varied experience in tech and startups. I've spent over 15 years in big tech companies such as Microsoft, Yahoo, and Twitter across Australia and Asia Pacific. And then for the last 5 years, I spent working in the startup space, both on the investing side, working at a corporate VC, TimesBridge, which is the VC arm of the Times of India, and working on the founder side as well. At TimesBridge, we invested in and helped large US startups like Uber and Airbnb enter the Indian and Southeast Asian markets. And I've also worked as an entrepreneur in residence at Startup Bootcamp. in 2023, I took the plunge and moved to the other side. I became a startup founder, and I joined the January 2023 cohort of Antler's startup program, and I'm currently working in stealth mode, building a generative AI related product. So hopefully I can share some of my experience and insights with you. So a question I frequently get asked, both in my day job at Jhavtech and in a lot of the meetups and communities, I'm quite active. When we speak to a lot of non-technical startup founders, the question that they ask a lot of the time is, can they just use no-code tools or these new crop of generative AI tools to build their product? The answer is yes and no, and obviously there's a bit of complexity to that. So to put it in context and to define it a little bit more, no-code tools are software platforms for the creation of application software through a GUI instead of using dedicated programmers or developer resources. The main difference between now and previous no-code tools is that this new crop can theoretically replace your dev resources. Theoretically, I say. No-code tools can include platforms that specifically replace the app building process. So these would be AI tools such as, no-code tools such as Bubble, Glide, or Adalo. But I'm also including category-specific platforms that focus on a specific industry or customer. So an example of this would be Trainerize for fitness apps, ShareTribe for marketplace apps, or Kajabi for creating and marketing online content and courses. In terms of generative AI, this is tech that can learn from existing artifacts to like data and content to generate new realistic artifacts at scale that reflect the characteristics of the training data, but doesn't repeat it, supposedly. It can produce a variety of content such as images, video, music, speech, text, software code, and product designs. But for this purpose of this webinar, we're talking specifically about software code that we're particularly interested in. Leaders in this space are obviously some known brands like ChatGPT, Midjourney, and Microsoft. And then within this space, you can also include your more traditional SaaS platforms that have effectively integrated generative AI into their offerings. So services like Canva, Grammarly, and Adobe Photoshop come to mind. Sorry. So what are the pros and cons of using these tools in building your product? Well, the biggest pro is that can theoretically get you faster to market. I say theoretically as I'm making the assumption that you're building something a relatively simple app that doesn't involve much integration and something has been built out there previously. Along the same assumptions, another advantage is that it would be faster and easier to test and iterate new features with these no-code tools and getting your offerings faster to product market fit. Utilizing no-code also means you have more time to look forward and identify opportunities for automation and efficiency gains. The biggest downside to no-code is that you don't own all the code or the IP. Yes, you may own the templates, the audience, and the content, but if you're on a no-code platform, you don't own the underlying IP. Worse still, investors and VCs may not be willing to back you if you don't own all of that IP to your core offering. At the very least, and this is something that was a challenge when I was working on the VC side, was that the VCs would use this as a negotiating tactic. So the final con is that depending on the platform, it may be cost prohibitive as you begin to scale, gaining more customers and generating more revenue. So we've seen a lot of these situations at Jhavtech where startup founders need to move off their initial no-code platform, not only because they become a victim of their own success, they've got a lot more customers and revenue that they anticipate or plan, which is a good problem to have, but they've outgrown those capabilities of their no-code platform. And customers are often surprised how quickly they hit this ceiling. So when should you use these tools? Well, from our experience, we've seen that there's quite a few opportunities to utilize both no-code and AI in the earlier phase of your startup. And they're at the design stage with wireframe prototypes or developing a proof of concept. For AI tools, they truly shine when it comes to content creation. So using tools like ChatGPT and Midjourney can help you create more content than you could ask for. With tools like Copy.ai, integrating AI into your content and audience creation process is getting easier and more integrated. Now, I've asterisked building an MVP with no code or AI. So if you're thinking of building a very basic MVP that you know you're going to only use temporarily and only to validate your idea, then it is potentially a good way to develop an MVP quickly. I would say it's probably more closer to a proof of concept than some of the MVPs that we're currently seeing these days, which are, you know, sometimes can be quite a full-blown product compared to MVPs of, say, in the last 10 years. So you've probably seen a lot of clips on TikTok and YouTube of people sending, you know, sketches of their apps or a form like the one here on the right to ChatGPT, and the AI being able to generate error-free code. This is fine. This happens, and you know, you can definitely use it. It's okay to use these tools to clean up sketches or get an initial code snippet done. But it'd be difficult for any AI tool to generate code that allows for all the nuances of your tech stack or the access requirements for your APIs, or to allow for user personalization, just to name a few things. And here's not when to use these tools. Here I'm specifically talking about using the tools to build your core product again. If you are past your MVP and planning to scale up, your product is likely too mature to consider using these tools. I definitely wouldn't use these tools when security and PII requirements are critical. So if you're doing something in certain categories like fintech or industries where PII is really has to be, you know, highly protected, such as in health or education, I would not consider these tools. I would also consider a lot of the situations in Australia where you don't know where the data is stored in terms of the server cloud situation. It is sometimes highly advisable not to use these tools. Again, just focusing on when it comes to offering your core product. So not that there was naysayers on no code or AI, not at all. We think they're a great tool. We do think they're great tools that can help accelerate your development. So here's a typical scenario of how you could use, how you could build a SaaS-based startup and complement it with no code built tools. So you can build your MVP or your initial MVP or your proof of concept in a no-code tool like Webflow. Once you've validated the idea and move to building the actual product, you would move that to potentially an external or internal dev team with a technical co-founder or a CTO leading the product vision. Next, once you get to that stage, progressing to building your product on your own tech stack. After that, a lot of the non-core parts of your product and processes can be built on no code on AI tools. So think of things like the landing page or the CRM, anything that supports the sales and marketing effort that can be held on a no code tool like WordPress. There's no problems at all with that. So things like your sales tech stack, which includes your HubSpot for CRM, your lead management, and your marketing automation, and then also your customer support on something like Zendesk. That's a perfectly legitimate way to build your startup at the growth and the scale up stage. So here's a couple of case studies that I've looked at. Some I know directly, some obviously just kind of looking up and reading their stories about how they've used no code or AI tools in the past, and then built that to grow beyond that. So example is YouFoods. So YouFoods started off on WordPress and Shopify. They've had a few changes in their business and product model, moving more to like a packaged foods, but they did start on a WordPress and then a Shopify site. it gave them time to focus on product development and more of their pre-packaged items. But then they eventually moved to building their own platform. So My Deal started on Shopify. If you know My Deal, and they recently got acquired by the Woolworths Group. So they've gone from strength to strength. They did a lot of their product validation on Shopify, but once they quickly outgrew that, they moved to build their own platform. And then an international example is Better Legal, which is a US-based startup that helps US businesses get set up from the legal point of view really quickly, cutting the legal the legal requirements from days down to hours. So they built their whole platform on Bubble. They continue to bootstrap that and build it on Bubble, but in their scenario, they're privately held and they're not looking at taking any outside funding at all. So they're happy with the kind of niche that they've built there so far. So that kind of just gives you a quick rundown of how we see the world in terms of utilizing AI and no-code tools. How we can help as Jhavtech, we can obviously for all these services like strategy consultancy, we can help review and assess code. We have started to focus on migration, helping startup teams move from these platforms like Webflow, like WordPress, like Wix, and moving them to a more custom-built, robust, and scalable platform. So we can definitely help with that. And in more dire situations, if you heard our last presentation, we can help in those rescue projects where we can completely take over the development of apps that need to be finished often and launch. So that is it. I kind of flew through it pretty quickly. I'm happy to take any questions that anybody has. Right. So yep.
Rick, I've got a question for you. Yeah, so in terms of what you've seen out there, what are the big like kind of like red flags of like if you see someone building in no code and they're maybe like they're halfway through it, is there any kind of like signs like, oh, this is not going to scale for your idea, or is there just certain sectors to not to build with no code? What do you see in that area?
And the other thing I forgot to mention is that Rahul, the founder of Jhavtech, is here, and there he is. And any technical questions as well, he can help. I think what we're definitely seeing is in those particular areas where that particular startups that were focused on those kind of key industries that really hard to that where PII is a real sensitivity, or security is a real sensitivity, and they've had to move quicker off a no-code platform than anticipated. We're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing a lot of situations where, like I said, people get to that ceiling point with those platforms because the economics of adding more users to those no-code platforms don't make sense. And we see that happen really. Founders come to us and they're always saying they're really surprised. So we see startups who get customers to that 3,000, 5,000 user number, and at that point they kind of realize we need to be on our own platform because the economics of this, the business model of being on this platform just doesn't work for us anymore. So, and they were probably thinking more at the 20, 50,000 stage, whereas they get to that number or that unit economics number where it just doesn't make sense anymore.
And to add there as well is that these no-code platforms, once you start building the proof of concept or even the MVP, depending on what you're trying to build, you might quickly find out that it's not achievable in that platform because it's not capable enough to get to that next step. One of the examples that we had early this year is someone in the construction industry who started building something in Glide, working perfectly well, but when he had to make some customizations to the workflow, it wasn't working for him anymore, and he had to started discussing to move on to a custom platform. So it does depend on what you're building, and you will probably really quickly find out that the capabilities and the limitations of these no-code platforms pretty soon.
Great. And it looks like our friend strikeo.com raised his hand. Strikeo, did you want to go ahead and ask the question out loud?
Yeah, hey, thank you, Ryan, for the amazing session. I'd like to ask a very specific question in regards to like the coding platform itself. So, like for startups, like how do you advise them, like if they're trying to initially build on like a large language model like ChatGPT, but like they want to personalize and do a lot of algorithms within that, or like do you want them to start from the very scratch and like do a whole lot of training itself, like especially if you can highlight in regards to retail tech or like fintech, and either or. Thank you.
I'm not sure if I totally understand the question. I think I'll try to paraphrase it, and then if I've gotten it wrong, just let me know. So I think kind of the two options of the question is, can you build a generative AI startup or offering within a no-code tool? The answer to that question is relatively simple. That would be extremely hard because, like you said, with the LLMs, you need as much processing power and data warehousing, and cloud storage, access to a scale that these no-code platforms are probably aren't, can't allow for that capacity. The other way to answer the question is like, can you build a offering or an app or a service that connects or integrates into a AI platform? Yes, you can. So you can license and get API access to many AI platforms like ChatGPT, and that can be fed into or via a no-code platform. So that's relatively easy. If you're talking about specifically retail tech, it would obviously mean also integrating into a retail platform. And again, that's relatively easy in a no-code platform as well. But again, I would say no-code platforms, at least the ones that I've tried Bubble and Dala mostly. Feeding APIs into those platforms isn't particularly easy. It's not. I wouldn't say it's a no-code way of doing it. You do need. There's a lot of nuance, and there's a lot of technical complexity in that it's sometimes easier, at least doing that part with somebody, with a developer who is very skilled at API integration. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks for that. I just wanted to get to know a bit more about your particular advice if someone wants to start on in retail tech or fintech. Like, should they be going for an advanced LLM modeling in-house built, or like is it like better to go for like a GPT-4 or that kind of platform and built on that, if that makes sense?
I think
Like
it really depends on what you want your startup to be and offering about. If it is about offering a retail AI tech, then it's something that you need to build yourself, or build an AI model around and then offer that and sell that. If it's more about delivering a service to retailers that they can build on top of, and you're licensing GPT-4, ChatGPT, or whatever you're licensing, then that's a different that's a different startup. I think the first one is more VC backable because you're building a new AI tech, whereas the second one is you're licensing AI tech, which pretty much any business can create. So you'll focus more on the audience that you're building, and that's harder. That's harder to be VC backable.
Thank you. That was amazing.
No worries. Thank you. You're welcome.
It looks like Priya's got a question for you. When to know when it's time to migrate from non-code platform?
Yeah, I think there's probably the easiest way to know is to listen to your users, like the feedback they're getting. If they start to say that the platform or the service is it's laggy or starting to slow down, or they're getting you're getting negative feedback around that. The other way is just looking at your balance sheet or your cash flow. If you're paying more and more in SaaS platform fees because you're, like I said, a victim of your own success because you've got a lot of users now, and then you're paying per user, or you're paying a lot for the data storage, then if either of those two metrics seem to be out of whack, that's probably a good sign that you should start to at least think about and plan migrating off your no-code platform.
Great. The next one looks like I think Screenanth, actually she might have missed it. But could you maybe just gonna go into how to build an MVP with AI again, just a little bit in terms of what you were talking about before?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really get into too much detail with that in terms of building an MVP with AI. Like, I think there's where you could definitely start in terms of building MVP is if you want to use AI, is just to write the prompt and enter those details that you want, or if you have a sketch, attach that file to AI. A lot of the main generative AI tools can output images and code for you, so you can get something, at least the start of something. So services like ChatGPT and Copilot and Gemini can do all of that. That's relatively easy. Like I said, it's going to be hard to if you don't know code yourself, like getting that to a viable live state. I think that's probably the questionable case of, like, because you've got to you got to set your servers up, you've got to get your domain and all that. There's a lot more than just kind of putting in a concept and sketches into an AI tool and generating it out that way. Any deeper than that, we could absolutely happy to take it offline and have a more of a deeper discussion. But yeah, I didn't really put a lot into details of like teaching a class about how to build an MVP with AI.
No worries. And then it looks like Rachel, she said if we have lots of data, using something like Bubble can be really expensive. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. It can definitely be expensive. I think yeah, and I don't know, I'm not fully, educated on like the pricing structure now for Bubble and their pricing plans, but I think I know most of them I know, um, they charge by the user. So the more users you have, the more expensive it becomes. Some of them charge by the data. So if you are doing very data intensive service like video streaming or anything like that, it can get prohibitively expensive really quickly. And that's the other thing that I iterate. From what we've seen, a lot of the founder customers that we have, they hit that ceiling really quickly, a lot quicker than they thought. So our advice would be, even if you launch with an MVP in on a no code platform, and that's your only option, absolutely you should do that. But even at that stage, you should start thinking, or at least kind of have that idea in mind about this will be only temporary. If I'm going to be a success, to manifest it yourself that you're going to be a success, that you should anticipate to move off this platform really quickly. So build that into your plan as well, to that say, this is not a long-term solution. This is something that I'm eventually going to move off from.
Exactly. Actually, that brings me. I have a question about that. Is when you build on these low code or no code platforms, who owns the data? I mean, is there any kind of like confusion along that? If you start uploading all this user data, is that yours technically, or do they have some sort of claim to it because you're building on their platform?
I think that again, definitely check with the platform that you're on. The standard experience and expectations that we see is that you own your user data, you own anything that's any of the content that you generate. The templates, if you've bought a specific template, you own that template, but you only own that template to use on that platform. So that's probably one gray area. But any user data, any content data that you've created, you own, and you can migrate that off the platform. The trickier thing as well with a lot of these platforms is if you use a lot of plugins. And WordPress is renowned for using using so many plugins when you have to build a site there, that a lot of the times it's hard for that content or those features that the plugin powers for that to be migrated easily off the platform. And that's where the kind of tricky thing happens. And it's hard to try and replicate the feature that plugin offers when you move off. And that's why we try to encourage sometimes to get founders to migrate off earlier than expected, so you're not as reliant or invested in that plugin that's offering that feature.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. And then it looks like Davini has a question. Can no-code platforms be used to convert wireframes to Figma screens? She found a full workflow. Hold on, sorry, give me a little bit. Found a full workflow of Figma is critical for high code developers offshore.
I don't know if you have any details of this, Rahul. I know.
No.
Yeah.
I know that from Figma, if you created designs in Figma, you can convert it into HTML code to actually build a web page out of it, or it helps to build mobile apps in terms of design. But I haven't come across from converting wireframes to Figma. Of course, there are some AI tools available where you give wireframes, it can convert into some design files. But converting from wireframes to Figma screens using no-code platforms, I haven't personally come across it as yet. But to the second part of the question is that, yes, if you're hiring anyone locally or offshore anywhere, providing those Figma files, if you're doing this designs yourself, it's very critical to have those designs done upfront in as much detail as possible, just to guide the building process much easier. It just gives a bit of clarity and visualization for the end when someone's building the actual application or a platform.
Okay. And then yeah, Rachel kind of followed up like that she's using Glide app and she's not able to customize anymore. Maybe it's time for her to move to WordPress.
We would ask her like where she is in her journey, and like I guess her traction, like how many users she has, how much revenue she's generating. I would have assumed Glide app is like she's built a she built a, I can ask her directly. If you're building a mobile app, yeah, potentially you could move to something a little bit more robust like Bubble. Adala is probably a little bit better than Glide Up, but potentially moving to something a little bit more customizable, right? So something maybe React Native, like something being built there. To be honest, yeah, from Glide App to WordPress sounds like going a little backwards. I don't know how much more mobile how responsive they are, or optimized they are.
The one thing I would want to add is that WordPress Glide might not give you the ability to add custom code from memory. WordPress, that will give you the ability to create custom plugins or custom code on top, extended. But again, eventually, depending, as Rick mentioned, depending on what journey you're on, number of user bases that you have, WordPress is known to have performance issues because more and more stuff you start installing plugins or extensions, it has performance issues at the end of it. So personally, WordPress again would be something that you're trying out your idea, and that will you won't end up on WordPress. You'll have to then migrate again to a bit more sustainable tech stack eventually. Again, depending on how is your user base and your income going on. But yeah, that won't be the end goal for sure.
Thank you. So we're not building an app yet. It's a web app. Just at the moment, we're having a lot of location data on the Glide app. And since they upgraded their version, we actually lost a lot of key functions. For example, favoriting your location and the map, it's just gone. So we have no choice moving away from that. What do you have other platforms to suggest? If not, if the recommendation is not WordPress.
To be honest, I'll need to know more about your use case and then guide you exactly what the next platform you could use. But again, in saying that WordPress is a good choice, it's not a bad choice. That'll give you the ability to customize, and you're in a bit more control than Glide app. Because if Glide app decides to change functions and remove functions, you have no control over it. Yeah. WordPress is a bit more controlled because it's more of a boilerplate, and then you can keep adding plugins and customization on top. What the point I was trying to make is that WordPress, depending on your journey, WordPress will again hinder you at some point in terms of performance, mainly in performance that we have come across. So it could be the next right step for you, but depending on the growth, you will have to move on from WordPress to something else, more custom, more full, a better tech stack that you can control. Because again, you are married to something else that they control as well, as Rick mentioned. But Rachel, if it's a specific use case that you want to discuss, we're happy to discuss that offline and then guide you as best as we can.
Thank you. Yeah, how do we do that? Can I please get your email list? I can email you more details. Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to share my email address to everyone.
Thank you so much, Rick.
And oops, sorry, mistake. Sorry.
And I'll make sure to share all those details as well after. Make sure y'all connect.
Thank you.
Especially.
Thank you, Rachel.
And then one question from Alex. It seems as though most people need to migrate off no code as the company gets bigger. However, do you think in say 2 years time, the no code platforms will get better and faster and mean that people can stay on them for longer? In other words, will the future be a no code only Yeah.
Yeah, I think they'll definitely get better, and you could, yeah, and they'll definitely probably have to allow for more scalability, and they'll get to a stage where you could, again, theoretically be on there for longer. I think the 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 biggest disadvantage to the no code platforms is that, again, if you're building your core offering on there, you may not be a VC backable or investable startup, because the investors, the VCs, definitely when I was at a VC, is that's what we buy. We want to buy you and your IP to your core offering, and if you don't own it at all, then that would be a red flag to say we can't invest in you because you don't own it. And that kind of example of, you're on Glide app and then they pull a feature and then you lose that feature and offering. That's why a VC won't back a startup that's that is in that predicament, right? So it's really important that you own it, and so it can, yes, you can last longer, but if you ever have a plan or a vision that you want to be VC backable or have investors on board, then owning the IP and the code to your core offering is really critical. And so the no code platforms can get better and better, but it's not going to solve that problem.
Cool. Looks like we don't have any other questions. Did anybody have any other questions in the crowd? As I said before, we're gonna send this recording out to everybody. It'll be available on our YouTube channel, but our friends from Jhavtech would also love to help out with anything in the future, so I'll send out their contact information as well. But yeah, we have some time if anybody has any more questions. Nope. Okay, great. So we'll get like I said, we'll send out this to everybody afterwards. If you have any questions about what we do here at the Startup Network or anything with Jhavtech, please feel free to reach out. I'll have contact information in the email afterwards. Also, please, if you are free tonight, please join us in Collingwood. We're gonna be having a really cool AR, VR, sports and gaming pitch night for really cool founders that are out there, pitching their products. And this is a really good example of people building on solo, because each of them has no co-founders. It's all solo founders, and which is very odd for us. And so we've actually seen this, by the way. This is a trend for us at the Startup Network, that 18 months ago, everybody had at least 2 or 3 people on their founding team. Now we're seeing the majority of pitches that we see are founding teams of 1, which is really exciting. But also it means that anybody can build anything. So go out there, and if you have an idea, please utilize the services of our friend at Jhavtech, or get out there and start building, and then just know for a fact that you have some friends in your corner just in case things go sideways. But like I said before, the Startup Network has a bunch of other virtual events this week. We've got one tomorrow. Actually, we got one every day. So just log on a bunch any day, grab some pizza, and we'll be around. But for us at the Startup Network, we'll leave you with 15 minutes of free time, and best of luck for everybody, and hope to see you guys tonight.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks all.
Bye.
Thanks for your questions. Cheers.